te whatalo whatu mo le whaloalo le whawhonganga le tunu ne tai au, ma whatasi ma le whionga le whaipule, ia Pesetatamalelagi, Barbara Edmonds. Ia, tau novo inisi o lato polisi o lewa amatana wha lauiloa e tusa ma le lato pati a le leipa I tono o Aotearoa neiva I taimi. Talofa, good morning, Talamalelagi.
Oh, malo for manuia. Thank you. Afamasaga.
Malo lava. Every time I see you traveling back and forth and then on your media stand-ups, I thought, how can she manage all that time out?
Oh, I've got a very good team. First, my husband who looks after the children. I've got a very good assistant and a very good economic advisor. So, it's teamwork, but yes, hard work.
Yeah, no, good on you. Well, this week and last week, you start releasing some of your policies. And all along, people are saying, where are the policies? Where are the policies? And now you released about 5?
Yeah, we've released 5 policies in the last week. Really, it's for Labour. It's the start of, the alternative. Most political parties actually don't release policy sort of about into the first quarter of the election year. But we were ready to go with the policies that we needed to start framing what Labour believes is a future for New Zealand, in New Zealand by New Zealanders. Yeah.
Right. So let's start with some of your key ones.
So last week we announced the Future Fund.
Yes.
So at the moment, around 200 people are leaving New Zealand every day. And most of it is to go to Australia. Many of your listeners will know that their family's going over to Australia for more kupe, more jobs, more opportunity. So for Labour, what we wanted to do was provide the alternative that we believe that we can make a future here in New Zealand by New Zealanders for New Zealand. And the reason why we've taken this pathway is because at the moment the government, a lot of their focus is on foreign investment and foreign basically ability for capital, etc. So, foreigners to come and save New Zealand. But Labour is saying we have the skills, the talent, the ideas here in New Zealand, so we want to back it. So the Future Fund, for your listeners, so Michael Cullen, back in mid-2000s, he was under Helen Clark, the Labour Prime Minister. He set up a fund called the Super Fund. The Super Fund is basically the government giving money to this fund. It gets invested, and then it builds the superannuation money so that in the future they can start to help pay for super. This fund is very similar. This is a new fund that will be managed by the guardians of the Future Fund. The fund will be, the first bit of money that will be put in it is government assets, so some government assets that we own, as well as a $200 million capital injection. That fund will be required to reinvest the money from the dividends, from the interest they earn, from the investments they make, will be required to invest that money back into New Zealand to build infrastructure, move to green energy, to create jobs and for innovation and tech. Because at the moment, the Super Fund for the superannuation, they have a wide mandate and about 80% to 86% of their money goes offshore. But we're saying, well, we have the money here and the assets, so let's use it here. And that's the purpose of it, is to invest in these key parts of the economy so it creates jobs and opportunities for New Zealanders.
Why don't we invest some of that 86 or 80% of Super Fund in New Zealand?
It has a different purpose. So the purpose of the Super Fund is to maximise returns to help pay for superannuation. So it had to grow quickly, be able to basically grow the money fund really big, because we have really big super costs coming, with an ageing population. Yes. So by setting up a separate fund with a separate mandate, it doesn't need to maximise returns the same way the super fund does, because we're maximising the return by reinvesting it in our economy. So, the money that comes in, it comes back into the economy. So they're different purposes. And what we don't want is for it to be mixed, because the super fund has a different reason, and we need it to keep growing the way it is.
Thank you. Ole tanoanga tayo nei fama lulua tu tata o whaafonga o lela tamu whai matana no le ngana whapiritani alang o taimi e pupu e uti e whangata liva. Ai lela tamu whai e whaama mauni si o vahenga i ano tamu whai le whaama mla matupe a whai le polka lai mino tala laulunga le afo le evil tayo nei. Ai se whaongali taimi o e fo I o tala o pista manu le o mo le avano ni tayo tata no inisio lato polisia.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we'll just talk in English so I can get
and then you can talk at 9:30. Yeah. I still malama. Yeah.
No, that's very good. The so when you talk about assets, what sort of assets are you talking about?
So top of the list will be the government commercial assets. What we've said is we won't name and pick them until we're in government.
Yes.
The reason being is a number of these commercial assets have market disclosures because they're listed, and some that don't. They also have, for example, treaty clauses that are impacted on. So we want to make sure that we work through that incredibly carefully to make sure we don't sort of break commercial sensitivities and breach any sort of conditions.
I hope nothing will get out before the...
No, we're fine.
No, okay. First, so that's Future Fund. And your other big policy release?
So today, this week on Tuesday, we released our Medicard policy. That's our 3 free GPs per year for our people. For anybody in New Zealand, you will now be able to access 3 free GP visits. In order to pay for that, we are also putting a capital gains tax on property. So 9 out of 10 New Zealanders won't be captured by this. It's only if you own a second property or third property or fourth property like Christopher Luxon does. But ultimately, the money that's raised through that very simple tax will be fully used towards health initiatives. And the first health initiative is a card, which people will get, similar to how you have a community services card, a high needs card. But what we will do is load your entitlements onto that card. So the first thing is that you'll get three free GPs per year if Labour is elected into government.
Once your beaters might ask you, why don't you come and bring that and add it to my super gold card?
I'm sure he'll have lots of ideas that, as to how it could work. But ultimately for us, we see this as $1 that you spend in primary care, so at your GP, $1 you spend there saves $10 from the rest of the health system, because it means that when people are sick, cost won't be a barrier. They'll get to see their doctor, they'll get on top of their conditions, rather than they can't afford to see the doctor, and it means that their condition gets worse, which then means that they end up going to hospital. That costs more for for people's lives, for the economy, and for the health system. So by doing the primary practice, the GPs, that's the most effective way in order to be able to treat people and prevent them from getting worse.
Yes, perhaps people want to know how are these medical centres funded, or even your practitioners, GPs? Yeah,
so one of the announcements we made last week was an independent pricing authority. So GPs get, in some ways, a bulk funding from the government each year, and that's based on the number of clients they have registered with their clinic. Then GPs are able to add on other fees if, for example, that money from the government doesn't cover their costs. And the reason why it doesn't cover their costs is because over time what has shown is that the government has underfunded the money that should be going to the GPs. So the Independent Pricing Authority, which is what a new Labour policy is, this authority or agency will decide what that funding will be. So not me, the politician, not the GPs, but an independent pricing authority, so that it's independent, at arm's length, there's no politics, it's just based on the data, on inflation.
Just like higher salaries commission.
Yeah, so
You
basically
look at
very, very neutral. But it's to make sure that we don't underfund that sector. Because again, that sector is that primary health care, your GP, so important to preventing people from getting sick later.
Right. So your the capital gains tax, that's linked to this...
to the free GPs.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. Yeah.
Every time any government raises the health tax or wealth tax or capital gains tax, everybody puts up their arms and says, no, you're not going that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the National Party,
Yes.
right? The National Party have, we announced this on Tuesday, and they've just been lying since Tuesday about this tax will tax your business. No, businesses are exempt. This tax will affect your KiwiSaver. No, KiwiSaver is exempt. So they've just started and I'll say it's Bello, it's lies, to try and scare people from not supporting this. But the capital gains tax is very targeted. It is to properties. It does not affect your own home. Your own home is your own home. It will never affect it. And so 9 out of 10 New Zealanders will not be affected by this tax. So by National fighting really hard against this tax, that means they're representing the 1 person out of 10, as opposed to defending the 9 people out of 10.
So in terms of getting the thing sold to the community, obviously you've been thinking about strategies to make sure people will accept it and then sort of vote for it.
Yeah, because people want to know. I mean, people mostly, most people pay their taxes when you go and work. So every dollar that you earn when you go to work and you get your pay packet, that's taxed. But if you are like Christopher Luxon, who sold his 3rd, 4th, 5th home last year, he made over $700,000 in profit. That's double, almost, more than what he gets as Prime Minister. He didn't get taxed on any of that. But yet people who are working hard every day, maybe 1 job, 2 jobs, they get taxed on every dollar. And other countries in the world, we are one of 3 countries in the world, of the OECD, the Economic sort of Cooperation Development, this organisation. We're one of 3 countries that doesn't have a capital gains tax. So what we're saying is people want to know where their taxes are going to, and so we've signalled clearly that the money from this capital gains tax will go towards health. And what we've said to start off with health is you'll get 3 free GP visits.
Right. So that will actually encourage some people, very low income earners, to go and see a doctor when they're not feeling well, because some of them just put up with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, particularly with Pacific people, because one question that people say they have been asking us is, well, why don't you target the free GPs? Because some people can afford to pay $100, or $60 or $80 a GP visit. But what we've seen is, there's community services cards, high needs cards. There's all these targeted initiatives, but they're not working because people are still not enough Pacific and Māori are getting the health care that they need, even though there's targeting. So what we're saying is, okay, make it easy. Give it to everybody, because we can afford to give it to everybody with this tax. That way, what it happens is that you see an increase in an uplift in access, because with previous policies, you've seen the uplift. And so it just means don't worry about the cost. You've got 3 visits that are free for the year. Just don't worry about the cost and get in and see your doctor so you can get the medicine you need.
And even despite, we do help programs. And we encourage people to go and get your free check, whether it's screening, whatever.
Yeah.
And some people don't even take that up. The opportunity is there, but it's not taken up.
Yeah, it's not taken up for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's knowledge that they know that they have access to it. Sometimes it is because they can't afford things, even if it's free, the travel. But ultimately, by simplifying it and saying everyone gets this, that's a stronger message that gets through so that people understand they can access it. but we'll only be able to get it if Labour wins the next election. So I just want to make that clear. You need to vote Labour.
Okay, and what other policies? Because that's 2, 3. You were talking about 5.
So 4. That was 4
Yeah.
that I spoke about. So we've got the Future Fund, the independent pricing model. We've also had the capital gains tax,
Yes.
the Medicard with the free GPs. The last policy that we've announced over the last week is the gaming sector. So gaming is, like video games.
Yes.
Fastest growing sport in the world. Fastest growing economic development opportunity for New Zealand. The gaming sector. So we have people here in New Zealand that design games, video games. It's grown by 86% in 2 years. So one of the fastest growing sectors in New Zealand. When we were in government, when I was a minister in 2023, we gave a gaming sector rebate. So basically, sort of a tax credit for the revenue that they raise, right? The reason being is because Australia, knowing how important the gaming sector is and how fast it's growing and how much money they're starting to get in, Australia put in some gaming sector rebate, and the New Zealand lot said, well, we're just going to move to Australia and take the jobs with us. Because we can't compete with those other Australian companies and the government's helping them. So we did our own rebate, and these companies stayed in New Zealand, and we're starting to see the benefits of this. And it's very high skill, it's a lot of our kids. Like Pickpock, the CE is Sāmoan, Tyrone Macaulay. So Pickpock here in Wellington, it's a proud Samoan boy is the CE of it. So we've managed to support them to keep them here. So the gaming sector rebate, the policy that we announced, is we're taking off the cap. So the governments have to put aside money for it. So they've put aside $40 million, the same amount that we did. But the cap isn't being met because basically it's paying for itself.
Right.
So we're saying, well, then take the cap off. And that's what Labour is promoting as part of the election. And again, it's to try and keep those highly skilled jobs and opportunities here in New Zealand.
That's very good. The other thing, we talk about tax. The big companies like Google and Meta and that, there was a talk about sort of introducing tax to take.
Yeah, so I introduced the tax in 2023,
So
a digital services tax, and National took it away. So they got a tax cut of 500 million this year.
Right.
So it had to apply, but the fact is the money was sitting in the government books, and National decided this year not to do it. So that's a $500 million, they would have had to pay, up to $500 million of tax. But
Australia is doing that?
Yeah, so some other countries are definitely doing it. UK, for example, has it here. So that's gone.
So are you likely to reintroduce this?
So we have to go through our policy announcements. We'll have more to come, and you'll see.
Right.
But ultimately, the tax cut for tech companies, the oil and gas subsidies of $200 million, the landlord $2.9 billion interest deductibility. These are the choices the government has made. But things have gotten worse for people. But the government says to teachers and nurses, we don't have enough money to pay you. But they do to give tech companies a tax break, oil and gas, landlords. It's about choices. So the government is clearly showing, most people would have seen there was a mega strike last week. Teachers, doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers went on strike, over 100,000 people. And basically the government says, we don't have any money. Labour, blame Labour, it's all Labour's fault. But actually, it's quite clear to show, if you look at what they're spending their money on, it's not on the things that benefit everyday New Zealanders.
Right.
Yeah.
So, for you as a person entrusted with coming up with ideas for the economy of the country, as the Minister of Finance, if that happens, there's a lot of things that you need to juggle.
Oh yeah, it's just always. You always have to, and it'll be part of what they say a fiscal plan next year. When the government's got one more budget, and then we'll update our fiscal plan and release it next year about how we're going to make everything add up. But ultimately, the government's made some choices. we'll be able to make some savings as a result of it. We've got a new tax coming in, some new health initiatives which will help to save money in the long run. So it's all connected. You make a decision here and it affects something here. But this year is the 17th budget that I've either been involved in or analysed, so I've got the experience of how to put together a budget.
So for 17 years, previously you were helping other people?
Other people,
ministers.
yeah. So for 10 years helping government put together their budgets.
Oh, okay.
And then for the last, more than that, because I've only been in opposition for 2 years. Yeah, so, 15 years of helping these budgets and then 2 years of being in opposition where you don't help with the budget, but you attack the budget,
You're doing the...
So that foundational knowledge has been, that's just part of my career. So I get it. It's just what has to happen. Yeah.
And then the tax for, the tax brackets. Is there any thoughts of doing something there, or?
So it just comes down to what you can afford.
Right.
We've announced that the capital gains tax is our tax policy. To be able to afford tax cuts is very expensive. So when the government did their tax cuts, it's been 28 billion over 2 years. That's a lot of money. So
this is the tax cuts applied
that
by
everyone
national.
got last year and this year.
28 billion
over the
over
2 years. And most of that is borrowed. The government's had to borrow to fund that, which is why they've cut back services in other areas. But then they've given money to somewhere else. So for most people, you probably don't realise you got a tax cut because of the price of everything else had gone up. The price of everything else had gone up is what they say inflation. What has gone up is administered costs, rents, rates, insurance, energy costs. Those 4 key things are all areas that government can do something about, but they've chosen not to. Whereas when Labour was in power and we had high inflation, the inflation was from goods coming into New Zealand. Because when COVID lifted and the world started going back to normal, everybody wanted goods. So we were fighting with what's called tradable inflation. Whereas the government, domestic inflation has gone up. And those administered costs, rents, rates, insurance, energy, that's the reason why inflation is still high for people. And you think about energy. If energy is high, that means costs of goods here in New Zealand to make are high. So these are all the decisions that the finance minister has to make. And for me, that $28 billion in those tax cuts, which she's had to borrow for, makes our government books worse. If she didn't have to borrow for it, we would not be in a deficit. We would be in a surplus.
And then we lose people to Australia.
Yeah, because the jobs are being cut back, because people aren't spending money, because the cost to own a house or rent, etc., or to buy food is too expensive.
Yeah.
So it's all, again, interconnected, the economy and how things work. Yeah.
The tariffs.
Yes.
When you were doing your thinking, your planning, what sort of consideration do you give about what's happening with the impact on tariffs?
So most economists say the impact of tariffs will bring down growth. So it'll make the cost of goods a bit more expensive. We haven't quite seen that. But what's interesting is that the government is blaming tariffs for the reason why they had a drop in the last June quarter. So the way they do quarters, a drop in growth of almost 1%. So New Zealand's economy went backwards in the last quarter by 0.9%. So we contracted, we went back. We didn't grow, we reduced by 0.9%. The government blames that on tariffs. The problem is, though, is that the economists are saying, but there's been no impact on the tariffs. We haven't seen a market impact on the tariffs on what you'd expect it to be. So the government basically is blaming that on tariffs, as opposed to what they've done is cut back government spending in building, cut back government spending in infrastructure, and what that means is that less people are employed. So for example, the construction sector they've had a loss of 20,000 construction sector roles in the last year. So that all of these different pieces add up and to make basically what's happening in the economy today.
Yes. The latest or the last election for the local councils, one of the questions is for them to amalgamate and work together and see how can, the economy and scale and that. But there's also an impact on their work from whatever the central government decides, like what National is now trying to do. How have you considered that?
Yeah,
as
so
part of your planning?
So rates and administered costs has gone up considerably in the last year. Just this morning, a media article from S&P. So S&P. So let me step through this. When you own a house, you pay rates to the local council.
Correct.
Right? The rates have to pay for everything the council has to do. One of the major issues across the country are councils have got old infrastructure, so old sewage pipes, old water pipes. People died in the Hawke's Bay because of the bad water. And basically a big commission was set up, a royal commission, and basically said the water infrastructure across councils needs to be fixed so the water is safe for people to drink. So as a result of that, we had a proposal to basically fix this problem. And the way to fix the problem was to separate the assets for the water from the council, so that the new entity looking after the water infrastructure could borrow, could fix the pipes, and it wouldn't burden the councils with this on their rates.
Yes.
And we estimated it would save ratepayers around $1,500 a year, so depending on where you lived. The government came in, and with the help of the taxpayer union, who ran a very racist campaign because they didn't believe Māori people should be at the table to help with the governance, the government came in and said, we're going to get rid of that Three Waters. So they did. The problem, though, is that their new model, which has 42 entities rather than we had 4.
Yes.
They have 42 entities. S&P, Standard & Poor's, who basically rates the councils, and when they're rated the councils, it means that's how much it's going to cost for them to borrow. They said that this is not enough, and they basically said that it's worse off position, and they're likely to downgrade councils even more. If councils get downgraded, their credit rating, just like when you go to buy a loan, then there's a higher premium put on it.
Yes.
So the government, so S&P have basically come out to say this new 42 entities that the government is proposing, it's not sufficient for what needs to, it's not separate from the council enough. So therefore, councils will get a downgrade because they'll still have all these water assets to bring it down. So if your rates are going up, don't blame your council, blame the government, because it was the government that decided to change the water infrastructure way it's structured, which has led to the increase in rates.
So I think Wellington, Hutt Valley and Porirua are keen to get together. Hopefully Upper Hutt will join them.
Yeah, but they already do that anyway.
Yeah.
So their water entities are already amalgamated. But actually as a council level, we had the referendum here in Porirua. And I think it was in a positive to see if they could try and amalgamate. And the reason why they're amalgamating is to bring down costs. But the water stuff is still the biggest cost for most councils.
Yes. So those are the elements that you need, water and energy. And obviously the price for energy has gone up. And people are up in arms with that. Yeah,
and it comes down to basically there's no strategy from the government about how you deal with that. So this is the economy, and there are some things the government can impact, and they're not doing enough in those areas, which is why the cost of living for people is going up. Because people say, well, that's rents and rates and insurance, that doesn't affect my grocery bill. It does affect your grocery bill, because everything else, the cost of everything else is going up to compensate for those other areas which are going up by double digits in inflation.
So between now and Christmas, we're likely to hear new policies?
Yes, you will. Yeah, we'll have a few more before Christmas.
Yeah, and then we can just talk about.
And we will come and see you and talk about it. And then next year's election year. So make sure you're enrolled to vote.
Final message for our listeners. What do you hear, Barbara?
I know things are really tough for our families at the moment. Ultimately, you know, I thank you for your trust in me to do the job I have to do to hold the government to account. You know, summer is coming. Make sure that you look after yourself. Particularly, this is a very busy time for our families. And good luck to our children who are doing their exams over the next few weeks.
Thank you very much for your time, and good luck for the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yo tato por kalamena le tata no ene pistal tayo nei le la tam fa fa liwa tu tele tanonga nei ile afoliva ia la tu te liwa tu ya tu foi mo fa o le tato fa salonga to fa soifua.